Vikings get sold as explorers and warriors. Almost nobody talks about the uncomfortable parts. The tinder fungus soaked in urine to carry fire, the onion leek broth test that tells if a gut is torn, the duel that must happen within a week or you're disgraced, slave markets in Dublin and Hedeby, berserkers who bite shields and don't feel pain. Which of these is legend, and which one sits in graves and chronicles? The dental grooves tell the first story. Swedish archaeologists at Varnum found them in 2009. Parallel horizontal scratches filed across the front teeth of 24 Viking. Age males, not accidental wear. Deliberate modification. The grooves run perfectly straight, 2 to 3 millimeters apart, cut deep enough to expose the dentin underneath. Similar markings appear in graves from Gotland to Denmark to England. Always men, always warriors. Always filed post-eruption, meaning they chose this pain. Why mutilate your teeth? The answer sits in Burka's trading posts. Arab merchants described Norse warriors with artificially sharpened teeth, blackened and filed to points. Ibn Fadlan, traveling the Volga in 922, wrote of rust traders whose teeth were carved with blue lines and dark patterns. The dental evidence matches his account. They filed grooves, then packed them with charcoal or plant dyes. Blue-black teeth. Deliberate intimidation. But teeth were just the start. The real darkness begins in the slave markets. Dublin's archaeological layers tell the story. Between 841 and 1170, Viking raiders turned Ireland's eastern coast into medieval Europe's largest slave hub. Excavations at Wood Quay revealed the infrastructure, wooden pens, iron shackles, and most telling, the bone chemistry. Isotope analysis of skeletons from Kilmainham shows individuals born across Britain and Ireland, concentrated in Dublin during the trading season. Human cargo. The annals record numbers, 7,000 captives taken from Armagh in 895, 4,000 from Kildare in 886. Conservative estimates suggest 500,000 people passed through Dublin's markets between 800 and 1170. Hedeby operated on similar scales. Adam of Bremen described countless slaves from all the northern lands flooding the market. Archaeological finds support the traffic. Slavic pottery, Baltic amber, and most grimly, children's graves with signs of malnutrition and overwork. The bone pathology speaks. Vertebral compression from heavy loads, growth arrest lines from starvation, dental hypoplasia from systematic neglect. These weren't prisoners of war, these were investments. The prices survive in Icelandic law codes. A healthy male slave, 8 ounces of silver. A female, 12 if young and fertile. Children sold by weight. The Dublin excavations revealed silver hoards with cut coins and hack silver, evidence of the precise weighing needed for human transactions. One hoard from 860 contained 2.3 kilograms of silver fragments, enough to buy 40 people. But the slave trade was business. The rituals were worse. Ibn Fadlan's account of a Rus funeral in 922 remains the most detailed description of human sacrifice from the Viking Age. A wealthy trader dies on the Volga. His family selects a slave girl for the ceremony. For 10 days, she's honored, dressed in fine clothes, given alcohol, told she'll join her master in the afterlife. Then comes the final day. 6 men rape her in sequence while the assembled crowd chants. She's lifted onto the funeral ship, strangled, with a cord, and stabbed repeatedly while still alive. Ibn Fadlan recorded her words. "Look, I see my master sitting in paradise, and paradise is green and beautiful. He calls me to come to him." The crowd cheers as she dies. Skeptics dismissed. This is Arab propaganda until archaeologists found the graves. Balatear on the Isle of Man. A male burial with a female skeleton showing perimortem trauma, killed at the time of death. Lango in Denmark. 5 individuals buried together, the women showing sharp force injuries to the skull and neck. Burka. Grave 644. A warrior's burial with a young woman whose cervical vertebrae were severed by a blade. The archaeology confirms the ritual. If you value documented Viking and Norse-era history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. Now back to the story. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Ibn Fadlan's manuscripts and modern Scandinavian archaeological reports. The sacrifice wasn't limited to funerals. The bog bodies tell another story. Tollundman, found in Denmark in 1950, died around 300 CE, pre-Viking, but showing the continuity of ritual killing. Hanged with a leather noose, his face preserved in the peat shows peaceful expression. Recent analysis found his last meal, barley, linseed, and gold of pleasure seeds. A ritual porridge, deliberately prepared for death. Viking Age bog bodies follow the pattern. The Elling woman, dated to 280 CE, was hanged and had her throat cut. Holdremos woman from 160 CE shows similar wounds, but the most telling find came from Kehausen, Germany, in 2000. A young woman dated to 650-770 CE, the Viking transition period. naked except for a woolen band around her eyes, throat cut, hands bound, left arm broken. The forensics show she fought her killers. The sagas mention these deaths as blot, ritual sacrifices to ensure good harvests or favorable winds. The archaeological record confirms the practice continued through the Viking Age. Adam of Bremen, writing around 1070, described the temple at Uppsala. Every 9 years they hold a great festival at which they sacrifice 9 males of every species, men, horses, dogs, hawks. He counted the bodies. The number of bodies hanging in the grove is said to be 72. Swedish excavations at Gamla Uppsala found ritual deposits matching his description, human and animal bones showing cut marks and deliberate placement. But not all killing was ritual. Some was entertainment. Horse fighting dominated Icelandic leisure. The Egil's saga describes the rules. 2 stallions are driven against each other with sticks and stones until one flees or dies. Men bet heavily on the outcomes. The fights often triggered human duels when accusations of cheating arose. Archaeological evidence from 10th century Iceland shows horse skeletons with multiple fractures and bite wounds, evidence of repeated fighting. Some skulls show deliberate crushing, suggesting execution of losing animals. The violence extended to the legal system. Holmgang, trial by combat, governed Norse disputes from 800 to 1200. The Cormithing laws detail the rules. Combatants fight. On a cloak, 3 meters square. First blood determines the winner unless both agree to continue. If one party fails to appear within 7 days, he's declared a coward and loses all honor. Death was common. The sagas record dozens of Holmgang duels, most ending in serious injury or death. Excavations at Repton, England, revealed the aftermath of Viking justice. A mass grave from 873-874 contains 264 individuals, the remains of the great heathen army's winter camp. Among them, several show evidence of execution, decapitation, hanging, and ritual dismemberment. The bone chemistry reveals these weren't local inhabitants, but Scandinavians themselves, Viking justice for Viking crimes. The parasites tell their own story. Coprolite analysis from medieval York reveals the health conditions in Norse settlements. Whipworm eggs appear in 90% of samples, roundworm in 75%, beef tapeworm in 20%. The worm loads were massive, thousands of eggs per gram of feces. Chronic diarrhea, malnutrition, and anemia defined daily life. Archaeological evidence suggests Vikings deliberately infected enemies' water supplies with their own waste as a form of biological warfare. The latrine excavations at Lloyd's Bank in York found preserved turds dating to 1000 CE. Analysis revealed not just parasites, but dietary evidence, undigested fish bones, animal hair, and most disturbingly, human tissue fragments. Whether cannibalism, medical practice, or ritual consumption remains unclear, the evidence exists. But perhaps the most disturbing practice involved the berserkers. Medieval sources describe warriors who fought in trance states immune to pain and fear. The Ynglinga saga claims they bit their shields and were as mad as dogs or wolves. Archaeological evidence supports their existence. Graves contain shields with distinctive bite marks matching human dental patterns. The cause remains debated. Some scholars suggest Amanita muscaria, fly agaric mushrooms containing psychoactive compounds. Experiments with historical doses produce symptoms matching berserker descriptions, reduced pain sensitivity, increased aggression, and periods of amnesia. However, the mushrooms also cause severe nausea and unpredictable behavior, poor traits for warriors. Recent analysis favors a different explanation: deliberate psychological conditioning combined with possible ergot poisoning from contaminated grain. Ergot alkaloids produce symptoms closer to berserker behavior, without the debilitating side effects of fly agaric. Archaeological evidence from Norse storage sites shows grain contaminated with ergot sclerotia, particularly during wet harvest. Years. The conditioning process appears in the sagas. Young warriors underwent ritualized hazing involving sleep deprivation, pain tolerance tests, and isolation. The Volsunga saga describes berserkers howling like wolves and gnawing their shield rims. Physical evidence supports the training. Graves of suspected berserkers show healed fractures and bone modifications, suggesting repeated trauma and conditioning. But berserkers weren't the only ones who altered their consciousness. Archaeological evidence suggests widespread use of psychoactive substances across Norse society. Excavations at Firkat, Denmark, revealed henbane, seeds in a 10th century woman's grave, alongside other tools suggesting she was a vulva, a ritual specialist. Henbane produces hallucinations, and it was likely used for divination and magic. Similar finds appear across Scandinavia. Cannabis seeds from graves in Sweden and Norway, dating 800-1050 CE. Poppy seeds from ritual contexts in Denmark. Most intriguingly, analysis of 9th century Arabic silver found in Gotland revealed traces of opium. evidence of drug trade along the eastern routes. The drugs weren't recreational. They served specific functions: pain relief during medical procedures, divination rituals, and preparation for battle or death. The Völar, female seers, used them to enter trance states for prophecy. Male shamans consumed them before raids. Archaeological evidence suggests entire communities participated in seasonal drug rituals connected to fertility and harvest ceremonies. The medicine was equally brutal. Saga descriptions of battlefield surgery include details that modern forensics confirm. The onion test for abdominal wounds. Feed the injured man a strong onion broth, then smell his wound. If you detect onions, the gut is punctured and the man will die. Archaeological evidence from battle sites shows this wasn't legend. Peritoneal infection was the leading cause of death among wounded Vikings who survived the initial injury. Surgical tools found in graves reveal the sophistication of Norse medicine alongside its brutality. Iron forceps, bone saws, and cauterizing irons appear in 10th century burials across Scandinavia. But so do trepanation holes, skull perforations. Performed on living patients, some show healing, proving survival, others don't. The most disturbing medical finds come from women's graves, evidence of cesarean sections performed with bronze knives. Bone analysis shows the procedures were conducted on living women. The cut marks are too clean for postmortem surgery. Survival rates appear low, but some women lived long enough for bone healing to begin. Child sacrifice appears in the archaeological record with uncomfortable frequency. The Shetland excavations at Jarlshof revealed infant burials under house foundations, deliberate placement to ensure structural stability through supernatural protection. Similar finds appear across the Norse world: newborn skeletons under doorways, in walls, beneath hearths. The isotope analysis reveals these weren't stillbirths or natural deaths. The bones show evidence of deliberate killing: fractured skulls, cut marks on vertebrae, signs of ritual dismemberment. Some infants were buried with grave goods, indicating they held status despite their age. They died for a purpose. But children weren't the only ones buried alive. Archaeological evidence suggests the practice extended to adults in specific circumstances. The ship burial at Gokstad, Norway, contained not just the famous ship and chieftain, but evidence of companion sacrifice. 12 horses, 6 dogs, and traces of at least 3 humans were buried with the main occupant. Bone analysis shows the humans died violently, blunt force trauma to the skull. Recent excavations at Ridgeway Hill, England, revealed a mass execution site from around 1000 Paonag CE. 54 young Scandinavian males, all decapitated and buried together. The forensics show they were captured, stripped, and executed in sequence. But the isotope analysis revealed they weren't raiders. They were likely Norse settlers, possibly executed during Ethelred's St. Brice's Day massacre in 1002. The bodies show signs of torture before death: fractured ribs, defensive wounds on hands and arms, and evidence of prolonged captivity. Several skulls show healed injuries from earlier violence. These weren't soldiers caught in battle. They were community members selected for death. Environmental. Archaeology reveals the broader context of Norse violence. Pollen analysis from lake sediments shows agricultural collapse across northern Europe during the 9th and 10th centuries. Crop failures led to famine, which drove raiding, which created refugee populations that became slave stock. The violence wasn't random barbarism, it was systematic response to ecological crisis. The climate data tells the story. Ice core analysis from Greenland shows volcanic winters in 536, 626, and 939 CE, years when ash blocked sunlight and crops failed. Archaeological evidence shows these correspond precisely to spikes in Norse raiding activity. Desperation drove the darkness. But some practices had no environmental excuse. The ritualized torture described in the sagas finds confirmation in forensic evidence. The blood eagle, cutting open the back, breaking the ribs, and pulling out the lungs, was dismissed as literary invention until archaeologists found the remains. The skeleton from Repton shows the distinctive pattern: posterior, rib cuts, vertebral damage, and scoring on the scapula, consistent with the blood eagle procedure. Radiocarbon dating places the death around 873 CE, matching the historical presence of Viking armies in the area. The forensics confirm what the sagas described. They really did this to people. The cruelest practices often targeted specific groups. Archaeological evidence shows deliberate mutilation of Christian clergy during raids. Skulls from monasteries showed distinctive injury patterns. Impacts to the tonsure, the shaved crown worn by monks. The Vikings deliberately targeted the religious symbol. Excavations at Iona revealed the evidence: monk skeletons with crushed skulls, the fractures concentrated on the crown of the head. Dating to 806 CE, they match historical records of Viking raids on the monastery. The attackers weren't just killing, they were making a statement about Christian symbols. Women faced particular horrors. Skeletal evidence from raid sites shows systematic sexual violence. pelvic fractures, trauma to reproductive organs, and evidence of perimortem binding appear repeatedly in female remains from Viking attacks. The bone chemistry reveals victims' ages, predominantly young women of childbearing age, but Norse women also participated in the violence. Grave goods from female burials include weapons, torture implements, and evidence of ritual authority. The most disturbing finds come from Birka Grave 581, a high-status woman buried with a whip, iron spikes, and a collection of human finger bones. Analysis suggests she oversaw slave management or ritual punishment. The finger bones show cut marks, consistent with deliberate removal from living victims. Isotope analysis proves they came from multiple individuals of different geographic origins. This wasn't random violence, it was systematic collection of body parts, possibly for ritual purposes or as symbols of authority. Recent excavations at Trelleborg, Denmark, revealed the infrastructure of Norse cruelty. A ring fortress from around 980 CE contained specialized buildings for prisoner management, cells, restraint systems, and most disturbingly, drainage channels designed to handle large volumes of blood. The archaeological evidence suggests industrial-scale torture and execution. The soil analysis tells the final story. Chemical testing of Trelleborg's earth reveals elevated levels of iron and phosphorus in specific areas, consistent with repeated exposure to large quantities of blood. Radiocarbon dating of organic matter in these deposits confirms the fortress was actively used for mass killing during its operational period. Modern metal detection surveys of known Viking sites continue, revealing evidence of systematic violence. In 2018, detectorists found a mass grave near York containing 37 individuals with identical injuries. Single blade cuts to the neck, performed from behind. All showed evidence of binding. All died simultaneously. The silver coins in the grave date the massacre to around 950 CE. The isotope analysis of these bodies revealed they came from across northern Europe, Scandinavia, Ireland, Scotland, England. They weren't soldiers or raiders. They were slaves, probably gathered from multiple sources and killed in a single ceremony. The youngest was 8 years old. The most recent discovery came in 2019 from a construction site in Dublin. Workers A uncovered a pit containing 43 skeletons, all showing signs of violent death. Carbon dating places them between 850 and 900 CE, the height of Viking activity in Ireland. The bone analysis reveals systematic torture, broken fingers, crushed feet, and evidence of prolonged captivity. Among the bones, archaeologists found iron fragments, remains of restraint devices, and torture implements. Chemical analysis of the metal revealed traces of silver and gold, suggesting these weren't common criminals, but high-value captives. The location, near Dublin's medieval slave market, suggests they died during processing, evaluation, and preparation for sale. The soil beneath this grave contained something else, a boundary stone marked with runic script. Translation revealed, a simple message, here ends mercy. The stone dates to around 870 CE, marking the edge of Dublin's Viking quarter. Beyond this line, Norse law governed. Irish law meant nothing. Below that stone, archaeologists found what they weren't looking for. Wooden posts driven deep into the clay, arranged in perfect rows. The preservation was remarkable. Carbon dating placed them at exactly 852 CE. Each post bore cut marks from iron tools. Each had been sharpened to a point. Each showed evidence of organic matter, flesh and blood, absorbed into the grain. A forest of stakes, 43 corpses above, an execution ground that operated for 60 years. The wood remembers what the chronicles forgot.